Ladies and gentlemen, you're asking yourself, wait, what was that song I just heard? Well, that was the WWE theme song to the current reigning Universal Heavyweight Champion, Brock Lesnar. Ladies and gentlemen, the Podfather is back. I'm here to grace your eardrums. I'm here to give you another eargasm. I'm giving you these vocal vibrations over these airwaves, whether it's iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, 99.9 FM K-Dub, or YouTube. I'm here. Ulises is back. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be back with the Podfather, and I cannot wait. As he said, he's gonna give you an eargasm. He's gonna love. You're gonna fall in love with his voice if you haven't heard him before.
Thank you, man. I feel like I have a Barry White,
Yeah.
or even that Michael dude from Boys to Men.
Oh yeah.
The only part of his only part in the song where he's like, baby, just breaking it down.
Yep.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I'm here, you can see by the title, we're here to talk about why UFC is basically becoming like professional wrestling, WWE, or whatever you want to say. And it really is, man. I mean, let's look at the last couple years. I've seen recent posts like Ronda Rousey, she had a streak because Taker had a streak. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I feel like she was actually going out there and kicking ass.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, if you want to talk about the real pro wrestling aspect of UFC and ultimate fighting or mixed martial arts, I look at it like this. Like, Conor McGregor, dressed up in a nice suit, walks around like Vince McMahon and talks trash like he's Flair. And throughout basically Flair's entire career,
Yeah.
And yeah, he really brought a professional wrestling aspect to UFC, and that's for buy rates. That's to sell pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
That's to put butts in seats.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so they'll say, why? And then I think most recently with Lesnar showing up at UFC 226, pushing Cormier, and I forgot the guy Cormier fought to win the UFC.
Yeah,
heavyweight
same here.
title.
I don't even know his name.
I forgot his name. His name's not important. Lesnar was like, that guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So he doesn't care about him. And Lesnar said, Cormier, I'm coming after you, motherfucker.
Yeah.
So,
Very colorful language coming from Rock.
Watching that was like, this is the most WWE, most professional wrestling thing I've seen in UFC ever. And the commentators were like, oh, this is like WWE, except it's real. I'm like, this is the most staged thing I've ever seen. Like, Jesus Christ. Come on.
In your honest opinion, who does it better? The main man, Vince McMahon, or do you think Dana White's getting on his own?
Obviously, Vince does it better because he has decades of experience.
Yeah.
Vince, when you think of wrestling, you think Vince McMahon, basically, It's like when you think of superheroes, you think Stan Lee, you think Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
He's the creator,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, so they're really trying to go a pro wrestling route. They really want to go in that direction of, all right, because they don't have any big stars, really.
No, they do not, and that's
John
the thing
Jones
is
in his little situation. Connor's in his. Ronda, she left UFC, went over to WWE. And so they need guys like Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar, he has that pro wrestling element to him. He has that in his blood. Like people forget, when Brock Lesnar wants to be, he's very good at professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
When he wants to be. Go watch that match with AJ Styles in 2017. That was amazing. Yeah, so, I mean, it's very funny. And Cormier, he's such a big fan of wrestling. He was at 31. He was cheering when Seth cashed in on Roman and Brock to walk out with the world title. It's really funny that how this thing where, like, we're real sports, we're real men and women. We punch each other in the face. We dislocate each other's limbs. We're fighting for real championships. How they're using
antics and tactics that WWE
and
has used, and pro wrestling as whole has used for decades now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's such a double standard in UFC now.
Yeah.
And not to discredit them as athletes or as performers, because they're good at both. It's just that
UFC is more of an athletic aspect than performing.
Yeah.
The only person who really brings a performance aspect
to
Conor
McGregor.
Is Conor McGregor. Like, shut your fucking mouth.
Yeah.
You do fucking nothing. Yeah.
And also, Conor is a big WWE fan.
Yeah.
So that's where he gets
it from. He'll be making a crossover pretty soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really they're taking antics
Like, and
from
you see
us.
all the people that came from the UFC world to WWE.
Or mixed martial arts
Yeah,
in general.
mixed martial arts in general.
Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock. You got Tito Ortiz. You got a plethora of people. You got Ronda Rousey recently. You got Brock Lesnar. You got
Rampage Jackson was in
Rampage
Impact
Jackson
Wrestling for a
was an
little bit.
Impact. Yes.
Yes.
You have all these people trying to make it into like professional wrestling, but and they're huge UFC stars and MMA stars, and I feel like they bring that performance aspect to UFC.
Yeah, and I mean, even with other fights like McGregor and Mayweather, that was I told you this before we started, like all the tours and whatever. That's like if Hulk Hogan in the late '80s, brother, was going up against Ric Flair in the late '80s, while Hogan's working for WWF and Flair's working for NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions. That's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
Two megastars from these different. I mean, and Conor and Mayweather's defense. It was two different sports. But I mean,
But they had the same premise.
They have the same premise, yeah. But Hogan and Flair, that's two different promotions in the same sport. So kind of different there.
And
but still, that's
they went to a plethora of cities. They went to Toronto.
Yeah, they had a tour.
Yeah, they went to the UK. They did it over there, and just for those two to talk smack to each other, and it's insane. But it reminded me, like, if it was like something that came from WWE, that came from Vince's mind.
I'm like, this is so professional wrestling.
Yeah,
and then Connor's like, "Hey, you can't even fucking read."
Although
I popped for that.
That was very entertaining. Yeah, that was very entertaining for all those who saw the McGregor and Floyd Mayweather build-ups. Those were some of the most entertaining things I've ever seen. My mom still cannot listen to it. She's not a big fan of either.
I believe it.
But like you were saying, Podfather, there's such a contrast. There's such a similarity to both companies. It's kind of like UFC is becoming WWE light, in an aspect.
And this is the thing, like Dana White, he was smiling ear to ear, like he saw dollar signs. Yeah, because I mean Brock Lesnar, and that we talked about the Frank Mir fight yesterday.
Yeah.
He got like 400-something thousand for that fight.
Yeah.
Frank Mir got 45,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Brock's going for the payday.
Absolutely.
Real talk. And then I mean, I guess I really want to get into it. Because I said November yesterday. That's not the case. Like January is the earliest that it can happen, but we're looking at like March, because Cormier's 40th birthday is in March of next year, and he's looking to retire. So I look at it like this. Let's say everything goes clean with the USADA testing pool, and Brock's in there. Does Brock make an appearance in WWE at all in these next like 6 months? Because I would assume
there has been talks that Brock might leave the company.
I think because Vince, he's such a mastermind. Like
he would incorporate both UFC and WWE on Monday Night Raw.
Would Dana White lend Cormier for a night on Raw? We don't know. I see past it, and like I think Brock Lesnar holds that Universal Championship until WrestleMania 35, which is in April.
Yeah.
At MetLife Stadium, and he got booed in New York then back in WrestleMania 20. So, like, really work it so we can get booed in New York again. And then there's like Brock Lesnar going into the UFC fight. Let's say it happens in March. He has to have some sort of athletic competition, whether it's predetermined or not, to make sure that he's ready. So SummerSlam, yes, that must happen. It should happen. And then if he doesn't show up at SummerSlam, there's always Survivor Series or the Rumble.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Cormier, that's going to be very interesting. Like, because Cormier, he's a wrestler.
Yeah, he is a wrestler.
He's a wrestler. Brock Lesnar would have went to the Olympics if he didn't go to WWE. He was a 2-time NCAA champ. So I mean, like Brock can hold his own. Like let's not. This isn't CM Punk, and that's another factor that we can get into later.
Yeah.
Like that's not Punk just walking on. And I look at it like what if because I said it back when Lesnar fought Hunt 2 years ago. That went by so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all right, so he has this match with Hunt, this fight with Hunt, and then he has the match with Orton the next month at SummerSlam. What if Brock loses? What if he gets hurt? That damages his credibility. He won both. kudos to him. But then there's the thing with Cormier. I think Brock will win. That's my
Mm-hmm.
personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But what if he loses?
Mm-hmm.
That damages him going into WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot at stake here.
Um, but for me personally, I think that Brock is such a tremendous athlete that he could do both
Yeah.
and dominate both. Like he's dominated college sport. He's dominated Japan. He's dominated.
Had a little run in the NFL trying camp. Trial camp.
And you know and that shows you how tough the NFL is for the caliber athlete Brock Lesnar is. That you couldn't make it in.
I mean, Brock is Vince McMahon said he's the greatest combat athlete ever. I don't know about all of that, but I mean, look at Brock's track record. I mean, NCAA champion twice.
IWGP heavyweight champion.
IWGP heavyweight champion in Japan.
Uh-huh.
He was in the Minnesota Vikings preseason games back in 2004, I think. He's been WWE champion 4 times. He's holding the UFC. I mean, he's held the UFC championship. He's currently holding their WWE's Universal title. So, like, he's been the world champion in 2 completely different combat sports, which is impeccable, to say the
That
least.
is impressive. For one
Nobody
athlete,
else has done that.
For one athlete to
Ronda's
do that.
next, because she's going to win the women's title in WWE.
Yeah.
Like, she's next. And I feel like it's a big risk. It is a very big risk. That's like... I don't know. That's like Vince having, let's say... That's like Vince having to deal with New Japan or something. If Roman was champion, that's like having Roman go over there against like a Kenny Omega.
Oh no!
And Omega, because Omega's obviously a better wrestler than Roman Reigns. Omega would wrestle circles around him, so to speak. That would make Vince's champion and his company look very bad. It's the same thing here. Now, but I mean, Brock, he always has brought a legitimacy to professional wrestling since he's been in the UFC or whatever. But it's a very complicated scenario, you know.
Yeah.
But I said CM Punk, yeah. UFC, they try to capitalize on anything WWE. CM Punk, I remember John Jones got cut off the card Punk was on back in 2016. He immediately got a bigger payday.
Punk did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because Punk is a name. Like, I was watching it at a Straw Hat Pizza, and the place was packed. Once Punk's fight was over, the wrestling fans were kind of leaving. And you could see in the arena, the wrestling fans were a couple thousand people dipped out after Punk's fight was done.
And you don't think that UFC looks into that because they know that how big WWE is and how big more specifically their fan base is.
Yeah, how big wrestling's fan base is.
And for all those ticket sales to see one man CM Punk try to go for a different sport in UFC, you know, they don't was probably looking at the dollar signs there and say, you know what, it doesn't matter CM Punk win, lose or draw. He wants to bring those fans into the UFC.
Yeah. I mean, all aspects of mixed martial arts try to get the pro wrestling fans, like when Lashley was in Bellator or Batista, his couple fights. And then that's like if it's like if Suzuki from Japan, if he were to go into the UFC at his age, you know, all the smart marks who watch New Japan, like, oh, he's wrestling on UFC 231. Oh, I gotta see that, you know, something like that, whatever, or fighting at UFC, whatever. So yeah, that's always a thing that you have to look out for. But yeah, the basis of this podcast was UFC, MMA is they're on the WWE bandwagon, so to speak, and bringing their characteristics to
like what
product.
you said. Because like what you said, Podfather, UFC doesn't have legitimate stars. They only have like a handful. They don't have like a Conor McGregor. Yeah. They're trying to get Brock Lesnar back. They had Ronda Rousey, but now she's in WWE.
Yeah.
And Dana White's not a stupid man. He knows that he needs to bring stars in or to make stars. Because when after Conor left for like a little sabbatical, you know, with his family and whatnot, I didn't know who half of these people were in the UFC. I've never heard them in my life because when you think of UFC, you think of like Chuck Liddell and George St. Pierre and Frank Mir. You think of and now you think of Conor McGregor. You know, because you know, my point is that UFC needs stars to fund the product. If not, then you know WWE they have a plethora of stars.
Yeah, they have so many. They can send any one of their top guys out. They send Cena, they can send Orton, Roman, Miz.
Oh, just a quick fun question for you. Can you actually see Cena in the UFC or in MMA?
No,
Do you think he could at least hold his own?
with the right. I honestly I don't know. I seriously don't know. Who could I see in the UFC? Is that the question you asked me?
No, I'm just like going after the John Cena one because I felt like John Cena could at least hold his own in MMA. But
I don't see it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't see Cena in UFC. I don't see him doing that. Plus, like the dude's like 40 something.
No, I mean like hypothetically.
Hypothetically,
Like if he was younger.
I always put stuff on a literal sense.
Yeah.
I mean, SoCal independent scene Cena, maybe.
Yeah.
Like back in like 99, 2000,
Yeah,
2001, maybe. I don't know. Today, I wouldn't see it personally.
Yeah, but who of the roster today could you see in UFC?
I'd say Lashley because he never like really had a UFC fight.
Uh-huh.
I'd say him. I don't know. Shanna Baszler, she's already done the whole UFC thing. That's the thing. I don't know. I really have to sit down and look at the roster. That's gonna be a separate podcast.
Yeah.
Who from WWE do you think could handle themselves in the UFC? I personally don't know.
Yeah.
I'd literally have to sit down and look at the roster and be like, all right, maybe this guy could do it, or maybe Shinsuke if he was like a couple years younger, maybe he could. That's something I'd really have to look into.
Yeah.
Yeah, but man, are there any other points you want to tackle on this whole UFC trying to be WWE or pro wrestling?
It's just that for me, UFC are trying to get as many buy rates,
absolutely,
many pay-per-view sales.
It's all about making money.
It's all about making money and getting eyes on the product.
Yeah, people are upset with the WWE. Well, the decisions they're making money.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's because that's the end game. To make as much money as possible.
That's the end game with any sport or business.
Yeah.
WWE, UFC, NBA, NFL, the WNBA. Like, it's all about making money at the end of the day. It's all about revenue. It's all about getting asses in seats, seeing how many is at the gate. Just making that moolah.
Yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we went 17 minutes. We're going to end it here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm just trying to give you more content. I really am.
Mm-hmm.
Go check out a lot of the other stuff that a lot of the other podcasts that I've done. It's all on the YouTube channel. Black Power Ranking is coming later tonight or tomorrow. We don't know. This is the first one I've done since February. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of bases to cover. Mm-hmm. I will be doing the Extreme Rules recap, the instant analysis after the pay-per-view goes off.
I cannot wait to hear that one from the Podfather.
It's going to be a good one, man.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Later, Marks.
This has been the Bulletcast. Thank you for listening.